I love the deep connections between Montreal Jews and Israel. I feel like I don't have the studies at my fingertips, but Canadian Jews tend to visit Israel more often than their counterparts in the States. And in Montreal, again, I think more so that there's a real connection there. And I truly believe that it's hard to know Israel, to think about Israel, to talk about Israel without the experience of having gone there. The congregation I serve now, we do this tremendous exchange program with our teenagers where they live in each other's houses. Our kids go to Jerusalem and then their kids come to New York. And to be in Israel, not just as a tourist, I think is such an important experience for all of us at some point to try to have. I think that Israel is complicated for Jews now, and maybe it was always so, but I don't think so much. I speak to people who were alive in 1948, or people who were alive in 67, and they remember that really absolutely unadulterated feeling of pride and of connection. And I think that for a lot of folks it's more complicated today. It's more complicated because the politics of the region is more complicated. It's more complicated because the question of different varieties of Judaism and synagogue and state, so to speak, is more complicated. But for me, what that says is we need to work harder to reconnect, to find ways to figure out what does it mean to be a liberal Jew and to be connected to Israel? What does it mean to be someone who cares about women's rights and be connected to Israel? And how do we find ways to integrate those identities together? So the complication, I think, and the challenge is not something to avoid. I think that it's something to embrace and engage with. And the more honest we are about that, the more likely we are to have meaningful relationships and meaningful dialogues with Israelis and with this whole relationship between Israel and the diaspora. It's very important to me. When you look at the word Yisrael, Israel, both the country and the people, it means the one who struggles with God. And so if we're honest, we're struggling, and we're honest about that struggle. And I think that when we find that we can't speak about something, that's precisely when we have to make an effort to speak about it. You know, and we learn from interfaith dialogue, we learn from so many other dialogues, Black-Jewish dialogue, others, that have been tough, you know, that just because something is hard to talk about doesn't mean you don't talk about it. It often means that you need to talk about it. And maybe in this city in which there is such a range of Jewish denominations, there's such a range of faiths, there's such a spectrum from religious to secular of any variety, that the dialogue becomes a really precious thing, and that in some ways what we do in the diaspora can be a model for what goes on within Israeli society. And there's also a tremendous amount going on within Israeli society that doesn't make the newspapers, but it's really positive in terms of dialogue within the Jewish world, between different groups. So we can never stop talking, it seems to me, especially when the temptation is strongest not to talk. But it's tough. It can be very, very tough. But that's, if we can't talk to each other, then we have a much bigger problem. Mm-hmm.